everything you thought you knew about the new Harry Potter reboot was a lie? What if J.K. Rowling, the very author who created the wizarding world, is now the one quietly fighting against the studio that's bringing it back? Whispers of lawsuits, secret meetings, and casting choices so controversial they've sparked a cultural firestorm. Is HBO hiding a growing war behind the scenes? Could the reboot be heading toward disaster before a single episode airs? Or is this all part of a bigger game? One fueled by identity politics, fan loyalty, and billions of dollars at stake. And here's the real question no one's asking. Has the magic of Harry Potter finally become too dangerous to touch? Because while fans are arguing online and actors are caught in the crossfire, something much deeper is happening behind closed doors. A war for control, a battle over legacy, and a creator who might just burn it all down before letting it go. It started like so many modern controversies do. With a whisper, a random Reddit thread, a vague comment from an insider, a tweet that went viral with no source, no context, just outrage. J.K. Rowling is suing HBO. That one sentence lit the internet on fire. At first, it seemed ridiculous. But within days, the story was everywhere. YouTube thumbnails screaming legal war in all caps. Twitter threads speculating about contract breaches. Fan accounts confidently claiming the reboot was already doomed. And the reason? The casting. According to the rumor, Rowling was furious that HBO had gone too far in diversifying the new Harry Potter cast, changing the racial identity of characters she once described in her books. One name kept popping up, Hermione. Another one soon followed, Snape. The idea that the creator of the wizarding world would take legal action against the company rebooting her own story, it was too good, too controversial to ignore. Except, it wasn't true. There was no lawsuit, no legal action, no official statements, not even a single leak from someone credible. Nothing. So how did this story explode? It's simple. Controversy sells. The Rowling brand has become so polarizing in recent years that people are willing to believe anything, especially when it involves her losing control over the world she built. The rumor spread because it fit the narrative fans already believed, that Rowling was angry, controlling, and out of touch. But here's where it gets interesting. Even as the story gained momentum, Rowling stayed silent. No denial, no clarification, no tweet saying, "This isn't true." And in today's world, silence sounds a lot like guilt, which only fueled more theories. Was she really behind closed doors? Threatening HBO? Was this her way of trying to cancel her own reboot? Or was something else going on entirely? Because while the lawsuit may be fake, the tension isn't. There's a real power struggle happening here. A battle for control over Harry Potter's future. And it's not being fought in a courtroom. It's happening in writers' rooms, on Zoom calls, and behind studio doors. And to understand that, we need to look at Rowling's real role in this reboot. Not the one the rumors made up, but the one no one is really talking about. So, if the lawsuit never happened, what is J.K. Rowling's role in all of this? That's the part most people get wrong. Despite what the internet might tell you, Rowling isn't being pushed out. She isn't boycotting the reboot. She's not even fighting it. She's producing it. Yes, J.K. Rowling is listed as an executive producer of the new Harry Potter series. She's working closely with HBO and the show's writers. And by her own words, she's already read the scripts for the first episodes. And she loved them. In fact, she called the early drafts so good. That doesn't exactly sound like someone trying to sabotage the project, does it? But here's the catch. Her involvement has created a firestorm of its own. Because while Rowling may love the reboot's direction, a huge portion of the fan base doesn't love her. And her presence behind the scenes has become the elephant in the room. Some cast members from the original films have distanced themselves from her. Public figures have spoken out. And HBO? They've had to walk a razor-thin line between respecting her authorship and managing public outrage. HBO's CEO even went on record saying, "Rowling's views are her own. They don't reflect the story we're telling." Translation, they're keeping her close, but not too close. And that tension, it bleeds into every decision, every casting choice, every creative call, every PR statement. Because Rowling isn't just a producer. She's Rowling, the most controversial name in fantasy fiction right now. And that leaves HBO stuck in the middle, trying to revive a beloved franchise, without reigniting the war that's been brewing for years. But even as she works on the reboot, even as she publicly praises the scripts, Rowling's influence casts a long, complicated shadow over everything. And nothing proves that more than the casting choices, the single decision that turned online Backlash into something much bigger. And we'll go there. Next. This was supposed to be the exciting part. A brand new cast, a fresh take on the wizarding world, an opportunity to tell the Harry Potter story through a modern lens. Instead, it became a war zone. The moment casting announcements dropped, social media exploded with backlash. Not just skepticism, but outrage. One name set it off. Arabella Stanton, cast as Hermione Granger, a Black actress stepping into one of the most iconic roles in literary history. And, like clockwork, the hashtag started trending. #, not my Hermione. To some, it was a bold, progressive move. To others, it was a betrayal of canon. And caught in the middle, a young actress facing a tsunami of hate before filming even began. But it didn't stop there. Next came the announcement that Papa Essiedu, a Black British actor, would play Severus Snape. That sent the controversy to a whole new level. Fans argued that changing key characters' appearances was rewriting the visual legacy of the series. Others fired back that Rowling never specified race for certain characters, and that the wizarding world, of all places, should be more inclusive. So where did Rowling stand on all this? That's the twist. She supported it. Despite everything, she publicly stated she would not veto casting choices, even if the actors publicly disagreed with her views. Even if I could sack them, which I obviously can't, I wouldn't. J.K. Rowling. For once, she chose not to fight. But that didn't stop the internet from assuming she was fuming behind the scenes. That she was letting HBO run wild with her story. Or worse, secretly manipulating casting to save face. And it raises a much bigger question. If the cast doesn't align with her public image, if she's not the one calling those shots, then who really controls the reboot? Because this isn't just about casting anymore. It's about power, politics, and the image of Harry Potter in 2025. And behind all the headlines, tweets, and hashtags, another force is fueling the fire. One Rowling can't walk away from. And that's where things get personal. Next up, we talk about the most volatile controversy of her entire career. You can't talk about J.K. Rowling in 2025 without mentioning the controversy that's come to define her public image. The one that no spell or studio contract can undo. It started back in 2020. A tweet, a few blog posts, and a handful of comments that many viewed as dismissive toward the trans community. Rowling doubled down. Her critics got louder, and a once universally beloved author became the face of a cultural divide. Some called her brave, others called her dangerous. And from that moment on, she wasn't just the creator of Harry Potter anymore. She became a symbol in the global debate around identity and free speech. The backlash was swift and brutal. Fans started burning books. Former cast members, like Daniel Radcliffe and Emma Watson, issued public statements distancing themselves. And on TikTok and Twitter, thousands vowed to boycott anything Rowling touched. So when HBO announced she'd be involved in the reboot, the internet erupted all over again. Petitions were launched, hashtags surged, headlines asked whether it was ethical to support the new series at all. And yet, HBO didn't back down. In fact, they defended her. When asked about her controversial views, HBO's chief content officer Casey Bloys said, "That's a very online conversation. The TV show is not going to be a commentary on that." Translation, they knew the risk, and they took it anyway. But here's the thing most people miss. Rowling's views aren't reflected in the show. The reboot itself leans heavily into modern inclusivity, both in its casting and behind-the-scenes leadership. In fact, many of the writers and producers involved in the reboot have openly opposed Rowling's views, and she hasn't stopped them. So we're left with a paradox. J.K. Rowling is both deeply involved and increasingly irrelevant at the same time. She's still at the center of the brand, but no longer in control of how it's received. And that tension, between author and audience, control and chaos, is now baked into the DNA of the reboot. The question isn't just, can Harry Potter return? It's, can it survive in a world where its creator is more controversial than her creation? But this isn't just about Rowling anymore. Because behind the controversy lies a cold, calculated strategy, one that reveals HBO's real plan. And we'll break that down. Next. While the internet argued, HBO moved in silence. No flashy press conferences, no defensive statements, no damage control. Instead, they made one thing very clear. Without ever saying it outright, they're betting big on Harry Potter. Not the controversy, not the headlines, but the franchise. Behind closed doors, Warner Bros.' Discovery is in the middle of a massive shift. Streaming is everything. Legacy brands are gold. And in a post-Hogwarts world, the Wizarding franchise is still one of the most valuable IPs on Earth. So, when HBO greenlit the Reboot, a 10-year series retelling all 7 books, they weren't just reviving a story, they were making a power move. And here's what makes it bold. They did it knowing the backlash was coming. They knew J.K. Rowling's involvement would ignite protests. They knew the casting choices would spark fan wars. They knew critics would dissect every creative decision, every tweet, every frame. And they went ahead anyway. Because for HBO, this isn't just a reboot, it's a franchise reset. A chance to build a streaming empire, one spell at a time. Think about it. Game of Thrones is ending its run. DC is in rebuild mode. And Harry Potter, it's been quiet for over a decade. They saw an opening, and they took it. So what's their play? Keep Rowling attached, for legal rights, lore accuracy, and brand continuity. But balance her presence with a diverse creative team and progressive casting that appeals to a new generation. It's not about pleasing everyone. It's about surviving the storm long enough to cash in. Because for all the outrage, millions of fans are still watching, still talking, still waiting. And HBO knows something the rest of us might forget. Controversy drives clicks, clicks drive views, and views drive billions. But the real gamble? It's not about Rowling. It's about whether the world still wants Harry Potter when the magic comes wrapped in chaos. And the answer to that might just define the future of the entire franchise. But before we get to the conclusion, there's one final piece of the puzzle. What happens when a creator's legacy becomes bigger than the creator herself? So here we are, a billion-dollar franchise, a divided fan base, and a creator who went from literary hero to cultural lightning rod. The Harry Potter reboot was supposed to be a return to magic, a revival of the story that shaped a generation. Instead, it's become something else entirely, a case study in how stories evolve, and how their creators can't always control where they go. J.K. Rowling may still be involved. She may still shape the scripts, give notes, approve decisions. But she no longer controls the narrative. The world changed, the fandom changed, and, like it or not, Harry Potter changed with it. What began as a simple tale about a boy with a scar is now a battlefield for culture, identity, and power. And here's the irony. Rowling created a story about standing up to oppression, breaking rules for what's right, and challenging the system. Now that same story is being used against her, reinterpreted, reimagined, and repurposed by a generation that grew up with her books, but no longer sees her as the hero. So, what happens next? Will the reboot succeed? Will fans separate the art from the artist? Or will the shadow of controversy swallow the magic before it even returns? No one knows for sure. But one thing is clear. The Harry Potter reboot is no longer just a show. It's a test of loyalty, of legacy, and of whether magic can still unite in a world so determined to divide.